Welcome everyone to our very first daily Forex market analysis for 2018. This is for trading on January the 9th, 2018. So just a quick disclaimer before we get started. This is for education purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. So now we are officially back into our trade room. So we'll start our market analysis calls, and we will have these every day at 8 p.m. Eastern. So, all right, so as usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar here. So coming up on a Tuesday, not a whole lot of important or major data in terms of the red news. So there's everything is, oh, excuse me. Everything is yellow here, so nothing critical going on. So let's move on to our charts here. So here, when we did the weekly analysis, we were looking for euro dollar to drop because this is what we were looking at. We have this double top type of situation here, and I was looking for price to drop. So now it has dropped. So based on our daily candle close here, my bias is bearish. So I'm looking for price to drop further. So one thing we do need to keep in mind, it is into support here. So it will be important to see that the support gets broken here. So this area here, 1.1950 level will be very critical. My bias is to the downside. I'm looking for price to drop further into 1900. And then second target is 1850. So 1.1850. My bias is to the downside. So if we go take a look at it on the 1 hour chart, as we can see, price has dropped. We had this evening star formation right on the pivot point, and now it has dropped. We are into the support here. So it's important to make sure that we'll wait for the price to drop. So in terms of the pullback, I'm looking for a pullback into this level here. So pullback level is a 120 area, or even potentially into our pivot point here. So we'll keep this over here. So the type of move that I would be looking for is either it goes right into the pivot point and does one of these. So I'm looking for a drop, or we could get a higher pullback back into this support or resistance area, and then we see a drop. So overall, the bias is to the downside, and I'm just looking for a pullback and then a drop here. Pound here, pound dollar, it's still in this area. So this is what's going on. So as we can see, price is holding right here. It's sideways. So a very, very neutral candle close for the day. Price hasn't really done much. It's just stayed in this very, very narrow range. So two different things that we can look at. One is it is at an important resistance area. So last time price was here, we had a big drop. Right now, price is holding above this previous support level. So first thing, we need to make sure that the support gets broken. So in this case, my bias is neutral. So we need to play it based on what sets up. But usually, so if euro is dropping, and then pound could drop with it as well, unless pound has its own news going on. But right now, if US dollar basically goes up against everything, so pound is likely to drop as well. So first thing would be to see that this support here gets broken. So right now, I'm open for price to go either way. Not the best trade setup here, but in this case, because it hasn't broken the high for the previous few days, I'm looking for price to come down into this 1.3500 level. But I would be very cautious. If it breaks above this 13600 level, then it could go higher. So my base case scenario in this is that I am looking for price to do one of these and then drop into 1.3500. What I'm going to be careful about is if it goes above this, it could do one of these. So that's what is the risk. So we have to be mindful of that. My base case scenario is to the downside here for pound as well. Daily close is neutral. This one here, Looking at Aussie, Aussie has been very bullish for a long time. So we had an up move, consolidation, and this is what we need to be concerned about with pound. See how price was just stayed above this previous support level, and then it pushed up from high, pushed up higher from there. So that's why it's very important that we see a close below this level. So we need to see a nice red candle close. So right now, because it hasn't broken the high, that's why I'm looking for it to pull back here. But this is what we need to be careful about, this type of a setup. So here, Aussie was bullish, consolidation, and then further leg up. So now we are into that previous resistance, which was support prior to that, and turned into resistance. So we are into that. Now we have seen a bearish candle close, so I'm bearish on that. But this one is not as strongly bearish as Euro is, because we still have some strength left here. Price hasn't really completely turned. So my bias is to the downside. Right now I'm looking for price to come into this 0.7800 level or 77.94. Looking for price to drop here. So Aussie dollar bias is to the downside. And in terms of our pullback, we could see price go all the way up here. So a potential level that I would be watching would be this area right here, which is also our R1 level. So we could see one of these, which would give us a head and shoulders formation with a head in the middle. So that's the scenario I will be watching for. So looking for a bit of a pullback and then for price to drop. But again, be careful with this one because commodities have been very, very strong, and I'm looking for price to come into this S2 area. So looking for price to drop here. So we could push this a little bit higher into this 7,800 level, which is our S2 level. So looking for that move there. New Zealand here, New Zealand is consolidating sideways as well. So this is where New Zealand had hit a previous resistance level and price had dropped from there. So if we take a look here, we are almost into that area, but we are not seeing this pin bar or pins into this level, which still gives it a slightly bullish bias. And that's why with Aussie and New Zealand, we have to be careful because, excuse me. Because it could go higher. But if it's not able to break this high, or if it's not able to go above 7,200, then we are looking for price to pull back here. So in this case, I'm neutral on this. And the reason for this is even though price is holding above the previous high here, which makes it bullish, but we are into strong resistance level, and that could play out. So in this case, there isn't, price is kind of getting compressed, which means it's not moving, even though it's moving high, moving higher. It doesn't have a lot of momentum in it at this point. So this may not be the best pair to trade at this point, but if Aussie closes lower, New Zealand is likely to follow it as well. Okay, so Dollar CAD has had a big run to the downside, and looks like there could be still room left here. So this is where we are into this area here. So there is still room. So the daily candle close for today is very neutral. It is, as we can see, there's pins on both sides, very small candle body, very neutral bias on this one. But if the price breaks the low at 123.60, then we are looking for a further move to the downside, because overall bias is still to the downside. Then we could see a move like this back into this support and resistance area, which is 122.00. So I would be careful with this one, just with the commodity currencies, because we have had a huge run, and now we are starting to see more neutral moves in these ones. So I would be mindful with this. My bias here is neutral, so we'll have to play it by the ear. Two scenarios. One is that it breaks the low and then it drops further. A second case would be it does one of these, comes into this previous low, bounces off that, and goes back into a 125.50 area. So that will be the second scenario I would be looking for. Both of these are realistic because we have a neutral candle close. All right, so let's take a look at Euro Swiss franc here. Euro Swiss franc, we have had a bearish candle close, looking for further drop in this one. So this is where we are. We had a double top and then a drop here. So bias is to the downside. I'm looking for price to come into this trend line here around 1.1660 level. So looking for price to drop. If we take a look at the 1 hour here, this is where we currently are. And so that we have a confluence of 1650 plus we have our S2 pivot level here. So looking for price to move lower. The bias in Euro Swiss franc is to the downside. Pound Swiss franc, this is bullish right now. So it's just going sideways. If we take a look at the last few weeks, last few days here, price hasn't done much. We have been in this range. It is at the top of the range here. So I would look for price to move into the top of this range, slightly higher here into 1.3300, even into these highs. So the bias here looks bullish, but it is still sideways. The overall trend is sideways. So not the best pair to trade. Dollar Swiss franc here, we are seeing a bit of a sideways move here, but this is starting to look a little bit more bullish now because we are making higher lows and price is getting pushed up higher. So in this case, the bias would be to the upside. And in terms of the level, so the first target would be 9,800, which is pretty much right there. Second one would be 9,850. So the bias is to the upside, but it could take some time to get to that level. So right now, 9,800 would be the first target. Pound CAD. Pound CAD, a very neutral close, but overall trend is to the downside. We are seeing price making lower highs here. So we have a high, lower high, lower high, lower high. And now this is where we are. It's running into this resistance level. So as long as price stays below 1.6880 level, I'm looking for this to drop. And target here would be 1.6600 level, which is a little far at the moment. So the first target is 6750, and then overall target is to the downside here. Pound yen. Pound yen is very neutral close again. So price hasn't held above the high here. And because it hasn't held above the high here, I'm looking for price to drop. So in this case, the target would be, so overall, the bias is still to the upside, but in the near term, I'm looking for price to drop. And 152.80 will be the first target. And below that, 150.200. So those will be the two targets to the downside. If we take a look at the 1 hour, as we can see, price is right struggling with this level here. It hasn't broken above. So as long as price stays below this 153.60 or 153.50 level, I'm looking for price to pull back into this previous support level, which is yesterday's S1. So 152.80 will be the first level, and then 152.100, which aligns with our S3, will be the second target to the downside here. Euro yen here. Euro was weaker, so we have a really nice, we had a nice pin bar, and now we have a nice evening star formation here with these three candles. So I'm looking for price to drop in this. My target would be 134.25 here. So looking for a price to move lower. So Euro yen, I do like here. Aussie yen. Aussie yen, we had a bearish candle close. I'm looking for price to drop. We are into this previous resistance level, and in this case, looking for price to come back into 88.20 level. So looking for it to drop here. So we have a bullish and a bearish candle, so it negates the previous bullish candle. So looking for that to drop here. and target would be 88.20 to the downside. Dollar yen. Dollar yen, we have a bearish to neutral candle close because there are pins on both sides. But if the other yen crosses start to drop, this could come lower as well. So in this one, the target would be 112.80 level, which is not too far. So the next level will be 112.50. So that will be the second target to the downside. So bias would be bearish to neutral here. CAD yen. CAD yen, a small bearish, a neutral candle close, bearish to neutral again. We haven't been able to break the high. We are into previous resistance here. So in this case, I'm looking for price to drop, but not huge drop here. 90.65 level will be the first target, and then 90.20 level will be the second target. So I'm looking for this to drop slightly. Now, we do need to keep an eye on oil. So if oil and gold, so it looks like gold is weakening a little bit, and oil here is consolidating sideways. So if oil takes off to the upside, Canadian dollar could go higher as well, which means CAD yen could move up higher. So that's something to keep in mind. So those are the crosses that we are looking at. And so that's all I have. Any questions or anything else to add? All right, so if not, we will start our regular trading room hours today. So I'll be back at 3 a.m. Eastern time to trade the London session. So let's do that. So we will be back here at 3 a.m. Eastern. You guys have a wonderful evening, and I will see you then. Bye for now.